Our second speaker, Steve says he could easily fill at least 4 speeches with the many adventures he had with his first car, a 1965 Plymouth Fury. Today's speech is not one of those 4 speeches. It is about the time of many life changes that included leaving home and gifting that treasure, the first car, as his best friend. Steve Deal, you're in the Army, or Air Force now. You're in the Army, or Air Force now. Steve Deal. Let's welcome Steve.
I had to make a big decision. I knew I needed the GI Bill in order to afford college, and that meant joining the military. But which service? For me, it was a simple process of elimination. As a child, I loved the Coast Guard. I mean, navigating through treacherous waters, saving people. How cool is that? It was a dream until I was about 12 and went on that fishing trip in the rough water. And I learned you can feel like you want to die when seasickness is bad enough. Coast Guard? Nah, Coast Guard's not going to work out. How about the Navy? Heck, I grew up on Navy bases. My dad and my stepfather were both career sailors. I had seen enough Navy gray to last me a lifetime. And did I mention this thing about seasickness? Yeah. So the Navy, that's not happening. Or maybe the Marines. Well, this was 1971, and I got to thinking, well, why don't you just cut out the middleman, buy a ticket, and go straight to Vietnam? I thought maybe I'm not really Marine material. Perhaps the Army. I'd spent 2 years in Army ROTC in high school. I was reflecting on those 2 weeks out in the desert north of Barstow, California, running up and down mountains in the middle of the night, shooting guns and getting shot at. You know, I don't really think I'm Army material either. Well, what does that leave? The Air Force. The Air Force, the service I knew the least about. But I had heard this story. You may have heard it too. It was about these 3 guys. They were in a bar. You ever heard of these guys? Yeah? Yeah, one was a Marine. Then there was this Army soldier and an airman. And they're swapping stories and outdoing one another and all that. And the Marine says, all right, so you wake up in your tent at 3 in the morning with a scorpion scampering across the floor. What are you gonna do? The Army guy says, well, that's easy. I smash him with my fist and fling him out of the tent. What are you gonna do? Well, you got it half right. I'll smash him with my fist and then eat him. It's good protein. Then they both looked at the airman. What the hell is a tent doing in my dormitory room? Yeah, the Air Force was for me. Now, my Air Force recruiter was as persuasive and persistent as a timeshare salesman. Now, Steve, we have a list of 50 jobs here. And for doing the right thing, joining the Air Force, you can pick any of these jobs and it is yours. Well, that was easy peasy. I looked down the list for the one with the longest school. I'll take this one. AC&W radar repair. You sure you want that, huh? Yeah. I had no idea what that was. But I soon found out that after my 1 year of school, I would almost certainly be sent to Alaska, northern Alaska, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, on top of a barren mountain in a radar tower. Sub-zero freezing in the winter, and so many mosquitoes in the summer, you would have to wear a full body protective suit before you would go outside. Oh, what was right? You know, I thought maybe I should have asked a few more questions besides how long the school is. Well, there it was, At least I'd have plenty of time for reading and maybe I'd learn 2 or 3 foreign languages up there. None of that happened. They didn't send me to Alaska after school, to a big radar building on top of a mountain. They sent me to Germany, to a mobile radar, something I'd never even heard of. Our mission there was not to defend North America, but to guide attack aircraft close to enemy lines. And that's what we were expected to do, was get close to enemy lines. Now, I could probably show you kind of how my expectations went and what reality was through some photos. Hey, Mateo, would you bring up the first slide? Okay, this is where I thought I would go, or something very much like it. Middle of nowhere, cold, great big climate controlled building with a huge bubble on top containing a monstrous radar antenna. But that is not what I found when I went to Germany. Next slide, Mateo. Yeah. Yes, an antenna on the top of an army type truck. In fact, I drove that truck many, many places in Germany. The antenna folds down and off you go. Quite the adventure. Next slide, Mateo. This is what I thought my working conditions would be inside of the nice big building. Yeah, that's me, but that was in Montana after Germany. Rows and rows of equipment, wonderful working conditions. Yeah, that's what it was all about. That's what they told me I'd be doing after school. Mateo, next slide. But this is what my reality was in Germany. The entire equipment was inside of one small trailer towed by that truck. You could hardly fit one person in there. And yeah, that's me trying to get the work done. It was quite the adventure. And what about other things besides work? Next slide, Mateo. Dormitory. Yeah, remember? No tents, dormitory. I was looking forward to that relaxing time, catching up on reading. It would be just wonderful. Mateo, next slide. But in Germany, yeah, I was frequently in what they called a 20-man tent. We never put that many in there, but you could. You could. And yeah, that white stuff in there behind, that's snow. We just had a snowstorm the night before and more was coming. Yeah, it was very different, but we did have amenities. Don't get this wrong. Next slide, Mateo. This was our hot water. Somebody had thoughtfully labeled these cans. Wash, rinse, and shave. I mean, it was just like the Hilton when you think about it. I don't want to give you the idea that it was always snowy there. Next slide, Mateo. Sometimes it rained. And that was delightful too. So no matter what the weather was, it was a great time. But I was looking forward to other things in the Air Force when I went to those remote stations. Next slide, Mateo. And that was the wonderful food. The Air Force is known for wonderful, wonderful food. This happened to be a Thanksgiving dinner. And we had Thanksgiving dinners too in the unit that I was in Germany. Next slide, Mateo. They're called sea rations. Yeah, and that's the perfect one you want. It's turkey loaf. It's great stuff. Now, I don't know how much you know about sea rations. Next slide. They come in a big carton, a case like this. Next slide. And when you open the top of that case, you can see the 12 meals inside, 12 different meals. The only thing is that in reality, in the field, you never open it up on the top side. The case is open on the bottom. And there are no labels on the bottom. So you have absolutely no idea which meal is which. You reach in, pull it out at random, turn it over, and see what you're going to be eating. But that is also when the bartering begins. Next slide. Now, if you are a lucky, lucky duck, and it's breakfast time, and you picked the only ham and eggs chopped, in the case, you are king of the hill. You can trade that for anything else, no problem. On the other hand, next slide. If you were the sad sack that picked lima beans and ham, my friend, you are at the bottom of the rank. You, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, will be eating lima beans and ham. Next slide. Just so you know, it wasn't always rough and tumble. I occasionally would actually wear this uniform for photographs. I think I wore that uniform 3 times. Mateo, you can stop the slides. The Air Force was nothing like I expected it to be. During my 3.5-year short stint, I had numerous memorable experiences. Some were crazy, some touching, some were fulfilling. Some were very, very difficult. Through it all, I learned that diversity of rich experiences shared with others develops resilient, lifetime friendships. Now, the decision-making process I did to pick my job in the Air Force was maybe a tad oversimplified. Some might say even flawed. Perhaps flawed. But sometimes it's those rash decisions that launch us on the adventure of a lifetime. Thank you.